This is a review of the Maruzen P99 that I've only owned a couple of days. So hopefully, unlike a lot of my pistols that are second hand, this will be able to give a good idea of what it's like out of the box, anything that needs to be done with it to get it shooting better, and I can obviously keep you updated about how it's doing since it is brand new. Something interesting about most of the Maruzen guns nowadays, they're rebranded by Umarex, or they call it, can't remember, it's Armex. The people who import it, I'm not really sure what that's all about. There really isn't much point to all this rebranding because there aren't actually any Umarex markings on the gun, unlike the like USP series from them, the KWAs that have got all the Umarex markings. These literally just have a sticker on the box. That's pretty much the only difference. It's just a way of getting them into the country, I guess, with licensed trademarks. So something to note, this is a really small box. You can see I can get my hand around it. If I compare it to another pistol box I've got here, it's a pretty small box. Keeps everything very compact inside. As I said, this is a review of the P99. This is the gas blowback version. I got it from Fire Support for about £140, which with next day delivery and a spare magazine came to about £180, so it wasn't cheap. About the same cost as a TM pistol, so it was kind of a hard decision to buy this. But here we go. We get our Umarex branded instruction manual in a load of different languages, European languages. Covers both the P99 and the compact version. You get this really old style loading tool with the rod. You get probably about 20 BBs and an Allen key for adjusting the hop up. As you can see, the gun's pretty tightly packed inside. Right, so here's the gun itself. The first thing that struck me from picking it up is that although I knew the gun was going to be very light, it's quite solid. And it's actually, although I thought this was going to be quite a large pistol for some reason, it's actually really small. It's very thin. And hopefully I'll be able to do a comparison with a Glock. I might have to split this review into two parts because it's going to run on pretty long, I could imagine. There's lots of interesting features on this. So being a Japanese pistol, it is all plastic, although there's lots of metal reinforcement. Right, sorry about that. Just thought I'd grab my Glock 19 here. It's a similar size pistol. It's shorter than a Glock 17, the P99. It's similar in size to a Glock 19. It's a little bit bigger. It's actually maybe a bit thinner. It's a very sort of slim grip there. Really comfortable. So it's a similar size pistol to the Glock 19. Not too far off. So that's kind of your guide. Although this feels a lot more sort of dainty, the Glock kind of feels chunky. This is feels a lot more refined and kind of carefully built. Unlike a Glock, it does deserve a much closer look because there are so many features on this pistol that you really don't find on any other handguns. Magazines, they're quite expensive, £33 for a spare one. And they hold gas fine, mine do anyway. They got the correct markings. The correct pronunciation of what a lot of people say Walther is Walther, I believe. Walther, Waffenfabrik, something like that. I mean, a lot of people just say Walther because that's kind of the English translation is Walther. So they've got stamped trademarks there, P99. Magazine only holds about 20 rounds. A lot of people advertise these as 18 rounds. I think the realistic capacity is more between 20 and 24, I'd say. It does obviously have that little notch there, so it locks the slide back, although that isn't 100% reliable. I'll go into that a bit later. It's got the usual Maruzen switching valve, which I think is what gives it such a hard kick. Anyway, not much to say about the magazines. Without the magazine, the gun's very light. It's probably only about 300 grams or something. The real one's light. Obviously, this is all plastic, and it's a very light model without the magazine. With the magazine in, with its compact size, it feels solid enough. The frame is what feels like sort of a nylon fibre reinforced. You can kind of see there's a bit of texture to it. I wouldn't say it's just normal ABS plastic. Definitely has a different feel to it. Seems to be glass reinforced or something. Very tough. Doesn't scratch easily either, so that's a really nice finish. Something you may have noticed in the magwell, just put a little bit of tape in there to stop the magazines wobbling. So lots of features on this. If I start with the grip section, obviously it's all one moulded piece except for the removable back strap here. You knock out the pin here and you can replace them, although no back straps are included with it. You can buy them from Maruzen separately. So I find this one fits fine, so nice and comfortable. I wouldn't need a different one. You've got a lanyard kind of pin there, so you could stick a lanyard in there so you don't lose it. You've got the Walther trademarks stamped into the grip there. Nice amount of checkering. Gives a good enough hold. Could be a little bit more aggressive, but very comfortable. These grips were supposedly designed by sort of competition shooters to really be the perfect grip size, and as a lot of people will say, you really can't get much more comfortable than this. It's similar feeling to a Glock, but without that sort of aggressive curve. It's actually more comfortable. It doesn't dig into my hand so much. So I think they do feel very good. You've got magazine release that can be activated from both sides. It's a little bit too far away to release with your thumb. One thing you can do is actually release it with your trigger finger. But you can release it from either side, and that is metal. I've heard problems of these wearing down, so what I do when I insert the magazine, I push the release downwards and then let it go, so you're not rubbing away too much metal. Anyway, they lock in there pretty solidly, especially with that little bit of tape in there, nice and solid. So that's metal. Trigger's plastic. Loads of different things to talk out with the trigger, so I'll probably move on to that a little later. Plastic trigger guard and frame. Note that the rail isn't 20mm, it's just non-standard rail. You probably could buy an adapter for it. Some of the versions of this gun come with a rail adapter. This one doesn't, this is just the standard model. Nice big slide stop. I personally prefer a smaller one because when I hold the gun I find it really easy to accidentally depress the slide lock. But that's pretty much all there is to say about the frame. You've got quite a lot of markings on there, which look pretty good. Made in Japan, one of those sort of unrealistic ones they stamp on, but it's not much of a problem. Maruzen. Right, so moving on to the slide. It's definitely ABS plastic, you can kind of tell. But it's very nicely finished. You can see on the frame and the slide there are hardly any seam lines. So it's a very nicely finished gun. Nice fine trademarks. Walther P99. As I said, there's lots of metal reinforcement. There's actually metal all through here, big chunk of it here, and pretty much everywhere. So even though the slide does look quite thin and it is plastic, I can't imagine it actually breaking from the pressure of the gas. So something I was worried about was it not being durable, but I think this is going to be tough enough. It seems actually sort of built stronger than a TM Glock, so I think that's pretty good. It's quite a distinctive shape on the slide. Plastic barrel, got your ejection port there. Plastic. Something very interesting is the guide rod is actually plastic as well. Very light plastic. It's a shame they didn't make it metal to give it a bit more weight, but I think the real one's plastic as well, so I guess it's realistic. More trademarks. License trademark, Maruzen. That isn't something that's added by Umarex, or they're always on there. So yeah, it's good enough. You can always replace these with a shooter's design metal slide if you'd like. Sights on the rear fully adjustable. Well, for windage anyway. Let me see. There you go. You can see you've got that adjustment there. They're kind of mid-profile. They don't stick up too high, but they're not incredibly low. And the front is a plastic one. Something that I don't particularly like about these is the front sight sits a little lower than the rear. And the way that the dots are set out means that they don't line up perfectly. No, it's not very good. Yeah, they don't line up quite right. If you look at them on here, the front one has to kind of sit above the others. Just about works, but the middle dot starts to get a little bit cut off when you line them up properly. So they're good enough. It's nice that they have got markings on, but they're not perfect. As I said, the rear is adjustable. Sorry, you're trying to get focus here. Nice sort of detail on the slide. Got the serrations down it to stop it reflecting light when you're going down the sights. Stop any glare. Serrations here. Something I did mention is that the slide lock isn't 100% reliable. As you can see, it's already started to round off a little bit. So I sort of try not to, always use the slide lock instead of releasing it like that. Pull the slide back, release it like that instead. Should help with the longevity of it all. Anyway, takedown could not be simpler. This is probably the easiest pistol I've ever had to take down. You don't want it cocked. So what we have to do is take out the magazine, pull these down, and unlike a Glock, they stay down, and that's it. As you can see, really strange internals. You've got your internal hammer there. Something to note about the real gun, it's not a striker-fired pistol, it's actually hammer-fired, but it's an enclosed hammer. Here you've got your little hole for the hop-up. I might make another video about that, because out of the box it really doesn't work. You have to do a slight modification to the hop-up to get it working properly. You've got your normal blowback unit, which is typical for Maruzen stuff. It's slightly different to all the other designs out there. Okay, I haven't put it together quite right. Right, there you go. Then it's just a case of putting it back on and pulling the trigger, and it clicks that back into place. So that works pretty well. Now hopefully I'll be able to get this review done in one part, so I'm going to speed up a little bit. At the rear you might be able to see that hole. That is for our loaded chamber indicator, and we've also got a serial number on the back there, which has got 007 on the end, which is interesting. Pretty much every time the gun is cocked, that red indicator will appear. It sticks out a fair amount, and then as you shoot it, that will disappear. Something to note is it is a double action pistol, so if you haven't cocked it first, you can just shoot it by pulling the trigger, and obviously makes that pin appear. Trigger's plastic, and it's a very weird feeling. It's got 4 different positions. One is the double action, so just like that. The next is, once you've cocked it, it stays in that position. You can either pull it all the way through, or what you can do is preset it, and now you've got a short trigger pull. So when you first cock it, you get this forward position. You can preset it, and now it's going to be a light pull. Which brings us to the third position, which is after you've fired a round, the trigger is in the light position, in the single action position, and then it's just a quick light trigger pull, and you fire. Fourth position is that takedown position, where it goes beyond that notch, because you're taking it down. So yeah, strange trigger. It kind of gets them, you really need to get used to it. It's very clicky, lots of different movements to it. That loaded indicator is nice and useful, because on a pistol like a Glock, you obviously really don't know what the status of the gun is, but you can obviously see it very easily. Next interesting thing is the decocker, which is on the slide here. It's very easy. I thought you'd have to push it all the way in and release it slowly or something, but it's literally, you push it in about 2 mil, and it totally takes it down to the decock position. It doesn't take it to a half cock or anything. I quite like this, because instead of maybe when you finish shooting having to, release the magazine, fire off to release the hammer, all you do is press that decocker and it releases it all the way to the uncocked position, as you can see. So that's a really nice feature, just have that on there, just that button. Yeah, it's a nice thing to have, and it's easy to reach as well. So lots of interesting features. Strange trigger, you've got the decocker, loaded firing pin indicator. As I said, it's a really comfortable pistol, and I'm very happy I bought this. I was kind of deciding whether I should have got a TMPX4 or something that's a little more proven. But actually, for the money, this works really well. Now I've got the hop-up fix, that is. As you can see, there's a little Allen key inside. And I'll probably make a video about that. I just had to add a little bit of rubber from an O-ring. It put the pressure needed on, and now I'm getting kind of accurate results. It's still not a gun for performance. I think that's the main thing to say about it. You could use it for skirmishing, and I will be using this, but it isn't the most accurate, hasn't got the best range. So really it's more of a collector's gun, which it is perfect for because the finish on it's pretty perfect, really. If you put a shooter's design slide on, this would be a really nice sidearm, especially as a collector's piece. But I'm very happy with mine. Something to note is I don't use green gas. I just never really will, to make sure they last as long as possible. I'm not saying it'll break straight away, but I wouldn't recommend it. I use 01 Pro Gas because it is cheap and it works. And you get a lot of kick out of these guns. That's something that really surprised me. Compared to a TM Glock that's very snappy, this doesn't have quite the cycle speed, but I've been very happy with the amount of kick you can get from them. I guess the only thing that hasn't been working perfectly, except for the hop-up originally, was that the slide doesn't always lock back. If I try it now, actually. Okay, we've got lock back. There you go. Sometimes it'll just skip a few, but I don't personally mind. Not every pistol is perfect, and considering how well this is made and all of the features it has, I'm not really too bothered, because I'm quite happy with this. Obviously leave any comments or message me if you've got any questions, but I think that just about covers it for the Maruzen P99 gas blowback. I might look into getting one of the non-blowback versions and doing a comparison, but as far as this one goes, I was pleasantly surprised really. I thought it would be fragile, maybe not shoot very well, and I was kind of worried about the size of it, because they don't look like small pistols, but actually I've got small hands, and this is a pretty compact pistol. It's smaller than a Glock 17, so I've been very happy with it. Okay, more reviews on the way. Thank you for watching.